This week's episode of Stargirl gives us a closer look at Sportsmaster and Tigress, the final two members of the Mahkent Justice Society to be featured prominently until now, the new JSA together and in action, and after two episodes that were high on great character moments and development, but low on action, we get one of the best action scenes I have seen in a superhero show, DC related or otherwise. Hello everyone, I'm DanTheMan. And after a couple weeks of not being able to do Stargirl reviews, I'm back. For those who missed it, I did a quick update video last week and gave my quick thoughts on the three new Justice Society members of Our Man, Dr. Midnight, and Wildcat. If you haven't seen that and want my quick thoughts on it, you can click the card up here in the corner, and I'll also provide a link in the description. So with that out of the way, on to my thoughts for the 6th episode of Stargirl, titled appropriately, Justice Society. We start out being introduced properly to Artemis Croc. She's made a few cameos before this episode, but we get to see her in all her badass glory this episode. In the comics, like in the show, Artemis was the daughter of Sportsmaster and Tigress, and has served as both a hero and villain under the name Artemis most often. Although she did also take on the name Tigress. She was introduced in the comic series Infinity Inc., which detailed a team made up predominantly of the teenage children and proteges of the Justice Society members. Incidentally, this book is where the show's current versions of Wildcat, Dr. Midnight, Our Man, as well as Henry King Jr. and even Mike Dugan, Pat's son, were first introduced. The characters in the comics are all actually a bit older than Courtney, as they are portrayed as adults in the current comic books, at least the ones still active in the comics, while Courtney is still a teenager. Although Mike has been retconned to be Courtney's younger stepbrother more recently. Anyone who's been reading Stars and Stripe on DC Universe or elsewhere after seeing the show should also consider checking out Infinity Incorporated, as this show borrows a lot from that comic series. In some ways, it borrows just as much as from Courtney and Pat's own Stars and Stripes series. Artemis has also been adapted before in both the Young Justice cartoon, where she's a main character, and in Arrow, although the later took a lot of liberties with her. Seeing Artemis, who is shown to be maybe a little too competitive but not necessarily a bad person, does make me wonder where they're going with the Justice Society's kids. We met Henry King, Artemis, and Icicle's son Cameron. At first, it seemed like they might be setting up a younger Justice Society, especially before the wizard's son was killed off. And they still might be doing that, but both Henry King and Artemis have been both hero and villain, but have both spent most of their times as heroes. And Henry, while very dislikable at first, has slowly seemed to be more humanized recently, and the writers seem to be trying to make him more sympathetic. And while Icicle's son was most definitely not a nice person in the comics, we have gotten to see a seemingly more likable version of him on this show. So they really could go either way with those characters. We then got a closer look at Tigress and Sportsmaster, both of whom have appeared prior to now, but at least to non-comic fans it was not clear they were actually a Justice Society members. I like the actor's portrayal of these two characters in the show. They're more comical than the other in Justice Society, but manage to still have a sinister edge to them that makes you still able to take them seriously as the dangerous threats they're supposed to be. They also manage to have a strange likability to them despite being undeniably evil, if that makes any sense. We got one of my favorite moments when Courtney, upon sneaking into her room, is met by Pat, and the staff quickly hides under the bed. That was funny both times I watched it for this review. I swear, that thing steals the show every scene it's in. I think the cosmic staff might be the real star of this show. The interaction this episode with Pat and Courtney was interesting. A lot of people have been calling out Courtney for being bratty in the show, and for her disrespecting Pat. Although honestly, even in the first episode, Courtney is never near as bratty as she started out in the comics. But at least after the second episode, I never felt she did truly disrespect him, and I think it showed it here. She definitely went against his wishes by recruiting the team, but it's not like teenagers are not known for rebelling against the authority figures in their lives and not always listening. But when caught, she mostly came clean, and you could tell genuinely regretted that she disappointed him with her actions. And she stood up for him with her new friends when they questioned him, and it was clear his not being involved until the end was not Courtney's wishes. Truth is, Courtney clearly does respect Pat. He wanted to bow out of the superhero game after fighting Brainwave, but Courtney has at least since fighting Brainwave wanted Pat to work with her and for them to be working together. He's the one that resisted them being a team from the beginning. And Courtney is right that Pat's plan of finding out who the Justice Society is and alerting the authorities wouldn't work. That would just lead to a bunch of dead authorities, even if the Justice Society didn't have the pull they do in that town. Courtney has shown, as far as we can see, she mainly respects Pat more than Starman and the JSA ever did. From what we know, he was a tag-along to them for the most part, whereas Courtney sees him as a partner. Also, speaking of interactions, I like the interaction between the 4 younger JSA members. Some have claimed it's some kind of forced girl power having the team, at least minus Pat, who before this episode was not really a member, be 3 girls and 1 guy. But I find the dynamic refreshingly different from how these kinds of things are usually set up, and all 4 of the actors play well off each other. While they were all together before, this episode really showed how well the characters work off each other. I also briefly want to add, while it mostly came off as filler, and it probably was, I did like the scene with Barbara and Mike in the science fair storyline. Seeing Barbara so easily step it up to be the mom Mike likely wants but would never ask for was touching, and it almost made Mike likable for a change. And then we come to the highlight of the episode, the fight scene. And man, what a great fight scene it was. The last 2 episodes, while great, have virtually no action in them. Instead, focusing on properly introducing and developing the 3 new JSA members. But they made up for any previous lack of action with this episode's big fight scene between the JSA versus Sportsmaster and Tigress. Some really good stuff, and while season finales often have the biggest action scenes, I'm at a loss to how they're going to top the one this episode. Although interestingly enough, they claim there will be a fight scene in the next episode that'll be the best fight scene in the whole series. So, that should be interesting. All in all, this was a great episode and a fitting introduction to the new Justice Society as a team. Only downside is we're now less than halfway through the season. It's such a shame we don't get more episodes, as with so many characters and so much going on, I think the show could have easily supported more episodes. But either way, I expect a roller coaster of a ride for the second half of the season. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video. I'm DanTheMan, and I'll see you next time.